Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Emma Lefave and today we are painting our second pink flower in our flower color guide series with Jillian from Crafty Fox and Brush Movement, and today we are painting this pink echinacea. So let's jump in and get started. Okay, so today's flower for our pink series, we are painting the echinacea. So I'm using my round size 10 brush and I'm painting in my Etcher Lab Cold Press Watercolor Sketchbook. And I just start by painting this light brown center. It's kind of like a dome shape, so it's a bit rounded on the bottom and then rounded on the top. Kind of reminds me of a gumdrop. And then I take some of my magenta and I'm just using my light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure stroke to create these long pointed petals. They're all going to be coming down from the base of that kind of dome shape. And so you can see that I go back over the petal shapes just to create the actual shape I want, to refine it. And you can also see that I'm leaving white space in between each petal at the top where it meets that center. So I feel like that's a really important part of it. You don't want them to all clump together at the top. You want to have that separation of the white space, and then each petal kind of touches each other towards like the belly of the petal, and then again makes its way out to the tip. So that's how I did that. And then I'm just taking some darker brown and I am tapping it mostly towards the base. I want it to be darker towards the base of the center of the flower and then lighter towards the top. So I took a really dark brown, tapped it towards the bottom, and then just slowly brought it up, but made sure it was nice and light at the top. Then I'm just taking a little bit of orange and I'm adding the orange to the top. The center of these flowers are really detailed and beautiful, but they're also a little bit tricky because you can either go like crazy detail with them or just make it look a little bit less detailed by just, you know, doing this approach. So you can also see that I had a little bit of the brown kind of bleed into my petals. That's totally okay. I'm just using my damp clean brush to kind of just mop up some of that brown. And now I want to wait for that to dry before I add more layers to it. So I'm just going to do another one doing the same kind of steps as our first echinacea. And then for the last version of this flower, I wanted to do a different perspective. So the petals are gonna be pointing up just a bit more. It's like not fully bloomed like the others. So I did a flatter oval shape for the center and did the little kind of spikies on the top, making it a little bit darker towards the bottom. Then I'm gonna grab a light wash the same as the other pink. And my petals are moving upwards. So this is a flower that hasn't fully bloomed yet. It's just started to kind of sprout and then before the petals have kind of drooped down. So they're going around the center of the flower, kind of pointing upwards. So now I'm going to start adding in my green. I'm just adding these little kind of green spikes coming from the base of that one flower where we see the side view and then moving the stem down. Kind of imagining where that stem is coming through behind the other flower. And then I'm going to do this one. I don't want to do too much of the stem showing behind the little petals, just a little bit. And when you do your stems, you want to imagine this kind of line coming straight through the center of that flower so it lines up perfectly. If it's off a little bit, it will look off. So imagine this line coming straight through the center of that stamen and then coming right out the back of the petals. And then here I'm just adding some fun little leaves, giving them a bit of movement. You don't want these like perfect shaped leaves. Have them curve, have them bend. I find it just looks a lot more natural that way when they're not so perfected. Then I'm just going to grab some darker green and just kind of add that in there. Just gives it a little bit more depth, especially to the underside of some of the leaves, as well as adding it to one side of the stems. So once all the flowers had dried, I decided to go back in with a darker brown, and I'm just adding these little kind of dotted spiky bits to the center. And I'm adding the darkest parts again towards the base, and I'm making sure to curve these little lines around kind of this dome shape just so it looks a bit more rounded. If they're too straight, then it won't look right. So you want to have it curve with the shape of the dome. And then towards the top, it just gets lighter and more sparse. So again, right towards the base of that center, it's nice and dark and kind of clustered together, and then it just slowly starts to get lighter and less towards the top. You can even add a little bit more orangey bits towards the top as well. Then I'm going to be adding a little bit of darker pink to the petals. So I'm just doing some really thin strokes on them as well as some thick ones just to add a bit more color, a bit more depth and shading. And then we'll gradually get a little bit darker with each layer. Now just going back in and adding some deeper color, so a little bit more dark brownish black to the centers. I'll be adding some darker pink to the petals and just deepening all of the layers and shadows. So I'll be doing the same thing to the leaves, the petals, all of that just to make it pop a little bit more, and that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and make sure to check back for our last pink flower of this series. And don't forget to check out Jillian's video on her channel, Brush Movement, for her version of this flower. I'll see you guys next time.